This is what happened when Aaliyah don't want to screen Caitlin right here. Look at this. Caitlin lands on her knee with Odyssey Sims trailing and grabbing her. Now Caitlin's on the floor grabbing her knee. Thank you, Aaliyah. Thank you so much, Aaliyah. Look at this. AB didn't screen. So now Odyssey Sims is on top. This is what Draymond Green was trying to tell you, Waffle House. This is exactly what Draymond Green...
The broadcast told 15 million people watching at home that the other player simply lost her balance. Anyone with 2 working eyes could watch that replay and see exactly what happened, but the words had already left the commentator's mouth, floating out into the living rooms and sports bars and phone screens of everyone who had tuned in to watch the Indiana Fever take on the Dallas Wings.
They came after Caitlin tonight. She gets flat mugged right here.
Trying to adjust her time.
Flat mugged. What are we doing? I mean, yikes! She couldn't get a foul call if her life depended on it. Not tonight, anyway. Not tonight. And then Odyssey Sims, I mean, for real, tackles Caitlin Clark. There's no confusion. She tackled her like it's the National Football League. And look, I like Odyssey Sims. She came through last year for the Fever, but that
was not a stumble. That was not an accident. That was a defender who ran directly into Caitlin Clark's lower body at full speed, wrapped up, and tried to take her legs out from under her like she was chopping down a tree.
And Bueckers. Some intensity growing here as Clark taking it.
If you're enjoying the video so far, take a second to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell. And the referees standing right there, within 10 feet of the entire collision, watching it happen in real time with unobstructed views, decided that the smartest move was to do absolutely nothing.
Boston is trash. She does not set screens. You got people tackling Caitlin Clark. Aaliyah Boston, big, soft, sorry ass, don't do nothing. She's a big, soft, sorry piece of if you ask me out there. Aaliyah Boston is ass. $6 million of ass juice out there. She ain't did nothing. Got dominated by Jessica Shepard. Aaliyah Boston, get your sorry ass in the trash too. Go on, get your sorry ass in the trash. You suck. You the most overrated, overpaid big. For $6 million, you need to be playing like Asia.
No whistle, no hesitation, followed by a whistle. Just silence, punctuated by the dull thud of a 200-pound body hitting the hardwood and the collective gasp of an arena that had come to see one player and one player only. That silence is where this story really begins, because it's not just about one missed call in one regular season game.
Electing to not screen. Look at this. Like, look at it. What type? You're screening Caitlin! Oh my gosh! She's screening Caitlin instead of Odyssey. Oh my gosh! How do you screen Caitlin? Oh my gosh! She's screening her own teammate instead of screening Odyssey Sims. How do you screen Caitlin? It got to the point where she's hurting Caitlin. She's the reason Caitlin probably fell. Let me watch this. Look at this. AB didn't screen. Odyssey Sims just literally fell into Caitlin Clark. How do you screen Caitlin? Oh my God.
It's about a pattern that has followed Clark all season long, a pattern that has fans screaming at their televisions and players shrugging their shoulders and coaches biting their tongues until they can't bite them anymore. Let's start with the knee, because this is the play that should be getting more attention than it is, and yet somehow it keeps getting buried under the usual excuses about physicality and the speed of the game and the difficulty of officiating in real time.
How much is too much when you're guarding Caitlin Clark? First, Paige grabs her arm, the whistle comes late, Clark gets pissed, and Paige basically tells her, calm down. Then later, Odyssey Sims takes Clark down and she lands knee first on the floor. Nah man, Dallas was physical all night. Indiana loses 91-85 and Clark walks out frustrated. Call it tough defense if you want, but if this is normal, what the hell actually counts as...
Clark is working off the ball, trying to get into a passing lane, her eyes locked on her teammate as she curls around a screen that was supposed to free her up for an open look. She's not even looking at the defender. She's focused entirely on the ball, on the timing of the pass, on the catch-and-shoot rhythm that has made her one of the most dangerous offensive players in the league. And then, out of nowhere, a wings defender closes the gap on her at a speed that has no business being that close to a standing player's legs.
Moving screen. She's moving all over the place. Hits her with the shoulder, like always. Look at this. Fouls her, holding her, and fouls the crap out of her. No foul. Look at this. She got fouled the whole game. They didn't call this a foul. Look at this one. Like, her body's all over her. How is that not a foul? Look at this one. Cardosa swipes her once, twice, just tries to grab her. Can you imagine being fouled the entire game? Every time you hit half court, every time you dribble, every time you drive. Look at this. Sheldon clearly has her hand on Caitlin Clark's shoulder when she's shooting it. They even showed a replay. It's exactly.
The contact lands low, right around the knee, with the kind of force that you usually see on a football field when a defensive back is trying to cut down a running back before he can plant his foot and change direction. Clark goes down immediately, both hands flying to the joint, her face twisting up in a way that tells you instantly this wasn't a dramatic sell job. You don't grab your own knee like that unless something actually hurt.
Caitlin herself got called a technical foul because she accidentally ran into a ref. And as you will see from the clip, it was not intentional in the least. Her reaction to getting the whistle is just like all of us. It was so utterly unfair. Watch this.
So clearly was a foul, was not called.
Oh, she didn't even say anything.
Oh my God. I mean, just insane. And they were gonna actually kick her out, and then they finally reversed that ruling. But like, this is crazy how the refs are acting. It's an absolute.
You don't stay down on the floor with your palms pressed against the side of your leg unless the pain is real and immediate and worrying. The defender, meanwhile, stumbles a step or two afterward and throws her arms out like she's the one who got caught off guard by the whole thing, which is exactly the kind of small performative detail that makes the whole play look even more deliberate on a second and third viewing. That stumble wasn't a stumble. It was a recovery, a quick reset after delivering a blow that sent another player to the floor, and the way she threw her arms up, palms open, face turned toward the nearest official with an expression of pure innocence, that's a move that has been practiced and perfected by defenders across every level of basketball. It's the universal signal for I didn't do anything wrong, even when the replay shows you doing everything wrong. The trainer eventually jogs out to check on Clark, and she stays down long enough that you can see the concern spreading through the Fever bench. This is a player who has been remarkably durable throughout her career, a player who has taken hits and kept playing, a player who doesn't usually stay on the floor unless something is genuinely wrong.
What was that? Paige having the audacity to push Caitlin Clark, then putting her hand out and telling Caitlin Clark to calm down.
Some intensity growing here as Clark taking exception to the bumps. You see Bueckers grabbing the arm of Clark and Clark flailing the arm.
This is just another example of how girls are getting smoked by Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. The numbers do not lie all across the board. Caitlin is not having her best night tonight, but we still have another half to go. And I will be the first to admit that I think Paige is a baller, the way that she can see the whole court, the way that she can pull up from anywhere on the court, but this was so shicey. There's always been rumors that Paige was kind of jealous of Caitlin Clark, and she admitted it herself that she was jealous for what's happening with Caitlin Clark. She said that in an interview recently, but I feel like you did not need to put your arm out like that. That is so salty. Both players are built for big moments, but that did not need to happen on the court tonight.
Here's the problem with calling that a loss of balance, which is exactly what the broadcast team did in real time and exactly what a certain segment of the internet tried to claim after the game. If you watch the footwork before contact, the defender isn't reacting to Clark's movement. She's not trying to get around a screen or recover from being beaten off the dribble. She's closing in on a stationary target with a purpose. She squares up her shoulders, drops her hip angle, and drives directly into Clark's standing leg. The exact same way a defensive back tries to chop down a running back, before he can plant and cut up field. That's not incidental. That's not a player simply failing to stop in time because she was moving too fast. That is a body position specifically to get underneath Clark and take her down, and the mechanics of the contact make that clear beyond any reasonable doubt. If a defender wanted to simply contest the passing lane, there are a dozen ways to do that without ever getting near the knee. You can swipe at the ball, you can get in front of the passing angle, you can stay on your feet and use your chest to absorb the contact. You don't need to go low, you don't need to drive your shoulder into someone's leg. This wasn't one of those other ways. This was a deliberate choice.
Paige grabbing her, no foul called, grabs her again. Caitlin Clark said, yeah, dude, I mean, she's touched me enough times right now. I mean, she's got her hands on me a little bit too much right now. Here we go, we have Paige grabbing Caitlin Clark, literally grabbing her arm, and we're not calling a foul. I don't understand what that is. This is one of the times where Caitlin Clark got mauled. Look at this. Grabbing her arm. Like Caitlin Clark's trying to run away and Paige Bueckers is reaching out saying, no, come here. I want to go this way. Like they're both going shopping at the store. And Caitlin Clark's like, no, I'm not going in that store. And Paige's like, no, come in the store. Yeah. It was wild, absolutely wild. Goes and grabs Caitlin Clark again and then foul. I mean, that second time looked like she was just trying to foul at that point. That looked like an intentional.
And the fact that the broadcast crew called it losing her balance in real time tells you something deeply frustrating about how quickly people are willing to explain away contact on this particular player, instead of just calling it what it clearly is. And here's the part that should actually make people angry, not just the play itself, but what happened after it. No whistle, not late, not delayed, just nothing. Clark is on the floor holding her knee, the trainer is bending over her, and the referees standing within 10 feet of the whole thing act like they watched a completely different possession. This is a player who has single-handedly transformed the league's visibility, who has brought in viewers who had never watched a WNBA game before, who has sold out arenas in cities that used to draw half-empty crowds. She is the single biggest reason a huge chunk of that arena bought tickets in the first place, lying on the hardwood in visible pain, and the response from the 3 people paid to officiate that exact situation is silence.
Caitlin thing I think is interesting because I believe them to be friends. They've said it before, or at least friendly, but they're good. You know, they compete against each other. They're competitors. You know, when you're on the court, it's different. Paige is clearly trying to take a foul here so that Clark doesn't get like some shot off, but she grabs her arm. She's clearly trying to take it. It doesn't get called, and then at this point, she's just mad. I don't think Caitlin has anything. She's not mad at Paige. She's mad at the ref for not calling the obvious. She grabbed my arm. Paige says, "Calm down." But listen, you yanked my arm. They didn't call it. Call the foul. And then she's still like, at that point, she's like, listen, she's mugging me at this point. You got to call the foul. This is going to end up being something.
No free throws, no flagrant review, not even a common foul to acknowledge that contact happened at all. The game just restarts like nothing occurred, like Clark had simply tripped over her own feet and needed a moment to catch her breath. And the only proof anyone gets that something actually went wrong is Clark limping through the next several possessions, favoring that knee, altering her movement patterns in a way that any trained eye could spot from the stands. But that wasn't the only moment that had everyone talking, and it wasn't even the most blatant example of what happens when the whistle stays in the pocket on plays involving Clark. That distinction belongs to the second quarter, with less than 10 seconds left on the clock, when Paige Bueckers stepped in to commit what should have been a quick and routine foul to give. Clark has the ball, the Wings have a foul to give, and Bueckers is the designated player to use it. Except using a foul to give doesn't mean grabbing someone's entire arm and refusing to let go while the clock ticks down, like you're trying to drag them into a store they don't want to enter. Bueckers wraps up Clark's left arm, holds on, and Clark visibly tries to shake free, clearly frustrated that she's being restrained instead of simply fouled and released.
NBA refs are some of the worst. They're the worst refs of refdom of any of the refs that exist. They are so continuously, perpetually, just terrible across the board. All of them.
Let's expose last night's game. Like, this was called a foul. After reviewing it, one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen. Look at this one. Instead of looking at her getting hit in the face, Caitlin Clark gets hit in the face. They look at a leg slightly moving a screen. Like, this is what Caitlin Clark deals with. Those are reach and fouls, arms across her whole body. She's getting hit twice, once in the throat, no foul called. So she could get hit, she could get assaulted, but they only call fouls if it's on her for not.
The referee lets several full seconds play out before finally blowing the whistle, and by then, Clark has already fired the ball down the court in frustration, sending it sailing uncomfortably close to Bueckers on her way toward the tunnel. The delay was so long, so inexplicable, that both teams were already walking toward their locker rooms by the time the whistle actually confirmed what everyone in the building had already figured out for themselves 3 seconds earlier. Watch it back and pay attention to the actual mechanics of the hold, not just the outcome. A foul to give is supposed to be quick. A bump, a wrap, a whistle, done. The offensive player is supposed to be able to continue their motion, the defensive player is supposed to make clear and immediate contact, and the official is supposed to blow the play dead before anyone can argue about it. This isn't quick. Bueckers holds on well past the point where any official should need to see more information to make the call. She's not trying to stop a shot attempt or a pass. She's not even trying to deny Clark the ball. The 10-second mark has basically already run out, and the game is effectively over for the half. She's just physically preventing Clark from being able to do anything with her body, while everyone waits for a whistle that takes its time arriving, and in the middle of that hold, cameras caught Bueckers mouthing something toward Clark that has been widely read online as some version of telling her to calm down.
Yeah, she intentionally seeked out the official.
But that's you were backwards to them. Did you know they were there in that moment?
And through the forearm, that too.
Did you know they were there?
No.
Did they give
It's
you
really bad.
a different explanation of anything?
No, that's
Gave
what I
us
was
the
told.
same
That's what I was told. Yeah.
What was your tech for the argument?
My tech was for saying that, even though I heard the F-bomb the whole game, my tech was for saying that. Like that's a bad call. That's a bad call. Incidental contact when you're flying out of control, like on it. And I thought her teammates should have come up and talked to her about that as well. Like I think that's really bad. That happens all the time in the game. Officials have to have some awareness in those moments, and it didn't happen.
Presume you plan to appeal that one?
Yes.
It's already a deal. I just hope the league makes the right decision. Hopefully I can play on Tuesday.
Right in the moment where Clark is the one being held against her will, right in the moment where the restraint is completely one-sided, Bueckers has the audacity to tell Clark to settle down. Slow it down frame by frame, and it's not subtle. Her lips move, her expression is calm, almost dismissive, while Clark is still actively trying to pull her arm free. And when you really sit with that image, it becomes something more than just a basketball play. It becomes a symbol of everything Clark has had to deal with since she stepped onto a professional court. Think about how strange that actually is when you slow down and really sit with it. Bueckers is the one holding on. Bueckers is the one extending the contact well past what the situation requires. And yet the message being sent in that moment is directed at Clark, the player being restrained, as if she's the one who needs to settle down and behave. It's the same loop that has followed Clark all season long. She gets hit, held, or fouled hard. She reacts to it, even mildly, and somehow the story becomes about her reaction instead of whatever caused it in the first place. It happened with the referee contact earlier this season when she accidentally bumped into an official and got hit with a technical foul that had to be rescinded after the fact because the contact was clearly incidental and unavoidable.
Clark's agent, Aaron Kane, said Caitlin will never be paid what she's worth by the WNBA because it is quite literally impossible for them to pay her what she's worth. An economist at Indiana University Columbus calculated that Caitlin Clark was responsible for $36 million in economic impact to the city of Indianapolis, and that she is responsible for 27% of the entire WNBA's economic activity for this past season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television. One player in a big league responsible for 27% of the economic impact and economic activity for the WNBA. You can argue this intelligently. No one person means as much to their league, whatever league it is, as Caitlin Clark means to the WNBA. And no person has done more for their league.
It happened with the knee collision just a few minutes into this same broadcast, where the broadcast team framed it as a loss of balance instead of a dangerous tackle. And now it's happening again with a grabbed arm at the end of the first half, where Bueckers' dismissive gesture gets more attention than the actual hold. Now compare that to how quickly whistles come out when Clark is the one making contact. Earlier in this very series between these two teams, Clark barely bumped into a defender setting up a screen and got an offensive foul called almost instantly. No hesitation, no discussion, no letting the play develop to see if it actually affects anything. The official's hand went up before the contact was even fully finished, as if they had been waiting for the opportunity to call something on her. That's the disconnect that fans keep pointing out game after game, night after night, across the entire season. When Clark initiates even the lightest contact, it's a foul before she's finished the motion. When something significantly more physical happens to her, the whistle suddenly needs an extended review of the situation, or it just never comes at all. It's the same three officials working the same 40 minutes of basketball, somehow applying two entirely different standards depending on which jersey is doing the shoving, and nobody in the league office has ever offered a real explanation for why that gap keeps showing up with such consistency. Clark herself got called for a technical foul because she accidentally ran into a ref, and as you can see from the clip, it was not intentional in the least. Her reaction to getting the whistle was just like all of us, pure disbelief and frustration. She didn't even say anything, and they were going to actually kick her out before they finally reversed that ruling. But the fact that the call was made at all, the fact that an official looked at that play and decided Clark needed to be penalized for incidental contact that happens dozens of times a game without any whistle, tells you everything about the mindset that Clark is up against every single night. Meanwhile, other players around the league have made similar or rougher contact with officials in the middle of live action and walked away with nothing more than a shrug. Fans noticed it instantly, and it fed right into the same argument that's been building all season. The argument that the standard for what counts as a foul against Clark and what counts as a foul on her seem to be two completely different rulebooks. The referees clearly knew they had a problem on their hands because the delay in making that call wasn't small. A foul to give by design is supposed to be assessed almost instantly. The clock situation is clear for both benches, and everyone knows that the defensive team has one free foul before the bonus kicks in. Instead, this one drags out long enough that Clark has already reacted, the ball has already been thrown, and both teams are already walking toward their locker rooms by the time the whistle actually confirms what everyone in the building had already figured out for themselves 3 seconds earlier. That's not good officiating. That's officials who were at best asleep on a play that mattered, and at worst, it's officials who were reluctant to make a call because they didn't want to be seen as giving Clark special treatment. And then in the third quarter, Bueckers herself picked up a technical foul for arguing with an official after a separate call went against her on a foul involving Clark, confirming that the frustration boiling over on the floor wasn't imagined, it was earned. The crew lost control of the pace and the physicality, and Clark ended up absorbing the worst of it before anyone in stripes decided to actually manage it. When both benches, both coaching staffs, and the entire arena are visibly frustrated with the same three officials by the middle of the third quarter, that's not a subtle signal. That's a crew that lost the plot early and never really got it back. This isn't the first time this exact pattern has shown up either, and it's not limited to this one game. A few weeks back, Clark picked up a technical foul for making contact with an official while she was simply following through on a play, a body in motion with nowhere else to go, and the league had to rescind it because even they realized it was ridiculous. In that same stretch of games, you could find clips of other players running directly into referees, chest-to-chest collisions that were far more obvious and far more avoidable, and those players walked away without so much as a warning. Fans noticed it instantly, and it fed right into the same argument that's been building all season. The standard for what counts as a foul against Clark and what counts as a foul on her seem to be two completely different rulebooks, and nobody in the league office has ever offered a real explanation for why that gap keeps showing up night after night. Some have suggested it's a bias against her style of play, that her quick release and her ability to draw contact makes referees less likely to blow the whistle because they assume she's exaggerating. But that theory falls apart when you watch the replays and see the actual force of the contact, the way her body absorbs hits that would send other players to the floor, the way she keeps playing through injuries that would sideline anyone else. Clark's own coach, Stephanie White, has been here before, defending her star point guard after nights like this, and you can feel the fatigue in how these situations keep repeating themselves. It's not that hard fouls don't happen in the WNBA, they happen constantly. This is a physical league, and nobody watching expects Clark to get a whistle every single time someone bumps into her. The issue is the inconsistency. The issue is a knee collision going completely uncalled in real time, while a phantom offensive foul on a routine screen gets whistled instantly 2 possessions later. The issue is an arm hold that takes 3 seconds to call, while a similar hold on another player would have been blown dead immediately. Fans aren't asking for special treatment. They're asking for the same standard to apply in both directions, and right now it clearly isn't. White has said versions of this after other games too, always careful with her words, always framing it as a general concern about consistency rather than a direct accusation, but the pattern keeps giving her more and more reasons to bring it up. She's called the officiating egregious and utterly disrespectful. She's pointed out that Clark has taken cheap shots night after night with no protection from the people paid to enforce the rules, and she's not wrong. But there's another layer to this story that makes the whole thing even more frustrating, and it involves Clark's own teammate. Aaliyah Boston, the Fever's big-name center, the one who's supposed to be setting screens and creating space for Clark to operate. Except if you watch the tape from this game, you'll see something that has fans absolutely furious. Boston electing to not screen, or worse, screening her own teammate instead of the defender. Look at this clip. She's screening Caitlin instead of Odyssey. How do you screen your own teammate? Oh my gosh! She's screening her own teammate instead of screening Odyssey Sims. It got to the point where she's hurting Caitlin. She's the reason Caitlin probably fell. Fans have been calling Boston out all season, and some have gone as far as saying she's the most overrated, overpaid big in the league, that she's soft, that she doesn't do anything to protect her star point guard. And when you watch the film from this game, it's hard to argue with that assessment. Clark is getting tackled, grabbed, and knocked to the floor, and her own center is out there screening the wrong player. The frustration from the fan base has reached a boiling point, with comments flooding social media about Boston's lack of urgency, her reluctance to set hard screens, and her apparent indifference to the physical punishment Clark is absorbing. There's also been speculation about tension between Clark and some of her teammates, and while much of that is unverified, the rumors have persisted throughout the season. Reports have surfaced that Boston recently snubbed Clark in an MVP debate, naming other players instead of her own teammate, and fans have called it straight-up disrespectful. Whether there's actual friction in that locker room or not, the optics aren't great, and when you combine that with the lack of protection Clark is getting from the officials, it starts to paint a picture of a player who is carrying an entire franchise and an entire league on her shoulders with almost no help. The whispers about jealousy and resentment have only grown louder as Clark's profile has skyrocketed, and while it's impossible to know what's really going on behind closed doors, the on-court product tells a story of a star who is being left to fend for herself. Boston is making over $78,000 this season, a huge salary by WNBA standards, and the expectation is that she should be playing like a dominant force, not getting dominated by Jessica Shepard or screening her own point guard. The criticism of Boston has been harsh, some of it crossing the line into personal attacks, but the basketball critique is valid. Clark needs a reliable screener who can create space and absorb contact, and right now, she doesn't have one. Which brings us to the bigger financial and competitive picture that the league seems to keep ignoring, because it's not just about what happens on the court, it's about what happens in the boardroom and the commissioner's office. Clark is by a significant margin the single biggest reason television ratings and attendance numbers have exploded across this entire season. Every arena she plays in sells out or comes close to it. Every network wants her games on their schedule. Every merchandise rack features her jersey in the front, and every highlight reel includes her logo threes and her no-look passes. An economist at Indiana University Columbus calculated that Clark was responsible for $36 million in economic impact to the city of Indianapolis, and that she is responsible for almost 27% of the entire WNBA's economic activity for this past season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television viewership. One player, 27% of an entire league's economic engine. No one person means as much to their league, whatever league it is, as Caitlin Clark means to the WNBA. Not LeBron in the NBA, not Ronaldo in soccer, not Mahomes in the NFL. The numbers are staggering, and they keep growing with every passing week. And yet, every time she goes down clutching a knee with no whistle, or gets held by both arms with no immediate call, that's a genuine risk to the health of the exact player driving all of that attention. If the league actually cares about protecting its biggest asset, the officiating in these specific matchups needs to stop lagging several steps behind what everyone watching at home can already see clearly on the very first replay. It shouldn't take a viral clip and a wave of angry comments for the league to even acknowledge that a play like the knee collision happened. It shouldn't take a formal complaint from the coach for the league to review a play that any casual fan could identify as dangerous within seconds. Clark's agent, Erin Kane, has said that the WNBA will never be able to pay Clark what she's truly worth because it is quite literally impossible for them to pay her what she's worth under the current salary structure. And when you look at the numbers, she's absolutely right. Clark's salary for the 2025 season is just over $78,000, a pittance compared to the hundreds of millions she's generating for the league and its partners. Meanwhile, she's driving nearly a third of the league's entire economic activity, and the gap between what she's paid and what she's worth is so vast that it's almost impossible to comprehend. That gap makes the lack of protection on the court even more insulting. The league is happy to cash the checks that Clark writes with her presence, happy to sell out arenas and sign new TV deals and watch the ratings soar, but when it comes to actually keeping her safe, the whistle stays in the pocket. The officials seem hesitant to give her the calls that she deserves, almost as if they're overcorrecting for the perception that she gets special treatment. And the result is a player who takes more physical punishment than almost anyone else in the league, with fewer calls to show for it, and a growing sense among fans that the league's leadership is either unwilling or unable to address the problem. It's a cycle that has repeated itself all season, and it's reaching a breaking point. Every game, it's the same story. Clark gets hit, she gets up, she plays through it, and then the media spends the next day debating whether the contact was really that bad. And the next game, it happens again, and the debate starts all over again, as if the previous game's footage never existed. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the full arc of this one single game, because it's a microcosm of everything that has gone wrong for Clark this season. A missed call on a knee collision that any casual fan could identify as dangerous within seconds of seeing the replay. A restrained arm hold that the whistle needed several extra seconds to catch up to, well after the damage to Clark's composure had already been done. A technical foul on the exact same opposing player just 1 quarter later, essentially confirming that the frustration boiling over on the floor wasn't imagined, it was earned. Overwhelmed by how fast and physical every single one of Clark's matchups has become, night after night, city after city, arena after arena, each one packed to capacity specifically because of her. And through it all, the referees seem to be operating under a different set of rules, a different standard of what constitutes a foul, a different threshold for when to blow the whistle. The inconsistency is maddening, and it's only gotten worse as the season has progressed. But intent aside, the result on the floor is identical every time. She gets hit harder than almost anyone else in the league, the whistle shows up late or not at all, and then the story of the night somehow becomes about her reaction instead of the contact that caused it. She's supposed to be the face of the league, the player who brings in new fans and grows the game, but she's also supposed to be able to play without worrying about her knees getting taken out from under her. That's not too much to ask. That's the bare minimum. And the fact that it's not being delivered is a failure of leadership, a failure of officiating, and a failure of the league to protect its biggest star. The excuses have run out. The clips are too numerous, the pattern too clear. The consequences too obvious. So what happens next? That's the question that keeps getting asked without a straight answer from anyone in the league office. How many more of these does it take before somebody actually does something about it? How many more times does Clark have to hit the floor holding her knee before the officials start doing their jobs? How many more arm grabs and tackles and cheap shots have to go uncalled before the league realizes that its biggest asset is being treated like she's expendable? The fans have already made their decision. They see it every single night. They're screenshotting the same broadcast quotes, calling obvious contact a loss of balance. They're filling arenas and buying merchandise and tuning into every single game, but they're also getting tired of watching the same thing happen over and over again, tired of seeing their favorite player get mugged with no consequences, tired of the excuses and the gaslighting and the refusal to admit that there's a problem. The question is no longer whether the league will do something about it. The question is when, and what that something will look like. Until something changes, these exact same clips are going to keep going viral for exactly the same reasons. The same hashtags will trend on social media. The same debates will rage on sports talk shows. The same frustration will bubble up in post-game press conferences. And the same question is going to keep hanging in the air, unanswered, while Clark keeps getting back up and playing through it, because that's what she does. That's who she is. She's not going to complain. She's not going to make excuses. She's going to keep being the best player on the floor night after night, regardless of what the officials do or don't call. But that doesn't mean the rest of us have to pretend like everything is fine. That doesn't mean we have to accept the status quo. The league has a choice to make, a clear and consequential choice. Protect its biggest star, the player who has single-handedly transformed the entire landscape of women's basketball, or keep pretending that what everyone can see with their own eyes isn't really happening. One of those options is going to cost them a lot more than the other. And when you look at the numbers, when you look at the economic impact, when you look at the ratings and the attendance and the merchandise sales, the decision should be obvious. Clark is not just a player. She is a phenomenon. She is the reason the WNBA is on the cover of magazines and the topic of water cooler conversations. She is the reason little girls are asking for basketballs for their birthdays and parents are tuning into games they never would have watched before. She is the reason the league has a future that looks brighter than it ever has. And if the league is serious about building on that momentum, if it's serious about protecting the investment that Clark represents, then it needs to start by protecting her on the court. That means better officiating, more accountability, and a recognition that the standard for what constitutes a foul should be the same for Clark as it is for everyone else. Not better, not worse, the same. That's all anyone is asking for. That's all Clark deserves. The silence after that knee collision wasn't just about a missed call. It was about a league that still hasn't figured out how to handle its biggest star. It was about officials who are afraid to make the right call because they don't want to be accused of favoritism. It was about a culture that still hasn't fully embraced the idea that protecting the game's best players isn't special treatment, it's common sense. And until that culture changes, until the league office steps in and makes it clear that this kind of officiating is unacceptable, we're going to keep having the same conversations after every game. We're going to keep seeing the same clips go viral. We're going to keep wondering how many more times Clark has to get knocked down before someone finally stands up for her. The answer to that question is going to define the league's future. And right now, the clock is ticking.